Hello and welcome back to Larry's Health Hacks. So today I'm coming to you live from the Camino de Santiago in Spain, where it's a 5-day pilgrimage from Sarria to Santiago, where we'll end up at a cathedral that has the remains of St. James the Apostle. Now, people have been making this particular pilgrimage as well as many other trails here in Spain. But it comes up from Portugal. You can come over the Pyrenees Mountains from France, come from England, Italy. I mean, it's just hundreds of trails, but the primary one is from France, all across Spain to Santiago. And we're taking the more a popular route that's only 5 days. The one from France is, I believe, 32 days. That's a lot of walking. But this one's a little over 100 kilometers, and I'm about halfway through, so 2.5 days, and it's been quite the experience. When I got invited on this, I really didn't know much about it, and I wasn't sure if it was something I even wanted to do, but the invitation came at a fairly pivotal time in my life where I was going through some emotional upheaval and a bit of a spiritual awakening. And so when I got invited to this, I told him, I said, hey, I'll think about it and get back to you. And then when I did some research and found out what this pilgrimage was all about, it was something that really spoke to me that I needed to participate in. So I said, yep, let's do it. And here I am, 2.5 days in. I'm gonna tell you, it's been a pretty interesting experience all the way around. You get to meet lots of people from literally all over the world. I believe that outside of Spaniards, Americans are the largest group of tourists that are doing this trek, and it's fairly crowded. Lots of people on this trail, but it's, like I said, it's been quite the experience, and I've been blessed to be a fairly healthy guy. And I turned 65 this year. And so while I didn't do any specific training to get ready for this, that did make me a little apprehensive about, coming out here and walking, for 7-8+ hours a day straight. And, but hey, thankfully I've done really well. About the only thing that I can feel are my calves. They definitely know that I'm doing, upwards of 20 miles a day. But outside of that, my back, my legs, my knees, my hips, all that, doing just great. And like I said, we're getting to meet lots of folks on the trail. And yesterday, I was talking to a gentleman that appeared to be in his mid to late 20s from France. And we were just, chatting about our experience. And he asked me, what is it that brought me out here? And of course, the easy answer was, I got invited by a friend. But then as we talked a little bit more, he asked me to write in his notebook what this experience meant to me. And I had to think about it for a second because, of course, over the last couple of 3 months since I got this invitation and accepted it, I've been wondering that myself. What does this trip mean to me? What am I expecting? What do I hope for? And that stuff. And of course, given the spiritual significance to this pilgrimage, don't we all want to have, some burning bush moment where, you get some flash of inspiration or, a divine message, whatever it is, wouldn't we all like that? But of course that hadn't quite happened. But, when he asked me to write in his book, what came to me in the moment was I wanted to experience the history of the billions of footsteps that have come before me. I wanted to experience that, but then also leave my history on this trail, because they've been doing this for centuries. So I wanted to participate in that history. And, when I think about them doing this 1,000 years ago, where these trails weren't marked. I mean, because this is a pretty established thing, and there's cafes and fruit stands and, rest stops all along our route. So it's a pretty convenient trek, if you would. And, but when they were doing this 1,000 years ago, where you didn't have all that infrastructure, didn't have all those amenities, didn't have those conveniences, man, what was that like? To walk this, where you didn't have water stations that you could fill up your bottle that you're carrying with you. It makes me think about that, While this is, certainly walking 8 hours a day is, gets my feet's attention, that's for sure. But man, we've got all those little comforts along the way. You can stop and rest and grab a snack or, whatever you wanted. So, but boy, back then they weren't doing that. So I think about that a lot as I'm doing this trek, but I'm so grateful that I got to experience this. And I know that the next 2.5 days are going to be just as good, if not better. And at the end, my wife's going to meet us, in Santiago Square. And really looking forward to that. She's flying over today, as a matter of fact. And so she gets in tomorrow morning, afternoon. And so she'll meet us there Thursday when we come into Santiago. But anyways, as always, stay healthy, stay committed to your well-being. Thanks for checking in, and bien camino.